Right, part 2, baby. With Mama killing it, aka Mama Africa. You gotta say like Africa, not Africa. Africa. Yeah, let's do this part 2 of the colorism. Every time that this happens. Let's get into it anyways. So today's video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the practices that occurred during this post-slavery era, and some practices that we've continued throughout generations. So on the last video, we discussed that basically skin color stratification, aka colorism, is the preferential treatments of ethnic people of lighter skin hues as opposed to darker skinned people in the community. There was this whole ideology behind it, the self-fulfilling prophecy. Black people believed that Caucasoid features and lighter skin made them better than black people with African features and darker skin. These ideologies were also employed by many black clubs, which used discriminatory physical measurements to determine memberships to clubs. The first test that we know about is the blue vein test. So upon entry to these clubs, people were asked to show the inner side of their wrist. Now, if you were a blue vein was visible, that meant you had entry into the club. You were permitted entry. Now, upon looking at my veins, I mean, I can barely see it, barely, but I'm going with a no. Like, I would have been denied entry. That's just what I'm saying. The second test was also the paper bag test. Now, this is a little bakery paper bag. It's not as dark as a normal paper bag, so I might have to redo this section. But they would literally put a brown paper bag next to your face, and if you were darker than the paper bag, you couldn't be permitted entry. And of course, the comb test. So this test, they would run a comb through your hair, and if the comb didn't glide through your hair, you were not permitted entry, my darling. So yeah, you're not getting any. It is important to note that all these tests held greater importance for black women as opposed to black men. Now, another thing that totally bamboozled me, was there was a tax, a dating tax that was put on the black man. Wow, changed the whole game. For example, it had been stated that fraternities would hold parties in which males had to pay a colour tax based on their date's skin color. So the darker the woman, the higher the tax. Did you hear that? The darker the woman, the higher the tax. So basically, a man that wanted to take me out would have had to pay a very high amount to enter these fraternities. Now, what that screams out to me there, let's just take a quick pause. From a psychological perspective, black men have almost been classically conditioned to view darker skin as a burden, a financial burden. It has been associated with financial burdens. If you're paying more to date a woman, which at the time, black people, the economy, the black community's economy was not doing, it was not booming. We were all hungry, we were all struggling during the post-slavery era. Food was tough to come by. So you're telling me, as a black man, I have to pay more just to date a dark-skinned girl? Naturally, my logic is going to sway towards the lighter-skinned female. It's going to be more of a convenience for me to date the lighter-skinned female because my date's going to be cheaper. I don't have the burden of paying so much. As a people, as our men have been classically conditioned to not date us. Wow, deep. Did you deep it? Did you catch it? Because I received it. Not only does it depict that black men have been conditioned to view darker skinned women as a burden in their life, but it also shows that colorism has not affected black men in the same way as it affected black women, because it was only the women that had to go through these membership tests. The paper bag, the comb test, the blue vein test only applied to women. The men could be as dark as they wanted to be. Now, the study I conducted for my research was based on Hall's 2017 study. The study aimed to provide a better comprehension of how much of a psychological distress colorism is for black women. The study concluded that colorism is a source of psychological distress, one that affects black women's social, economic and relational opportunities. So the fact that lighter skinned women were deemed the ideal mate left darker skinned women feeling abandoned, helpless and unwanted. Moreover, participants' accounts indicated that being dark-skinned exposed you to a higher level of ridicule and condemnation from your own community. Now let's talk about the role of the family. Now it's really interesting. Hall really emphasizes in this study on the importance of the family. He depicts that the family is a prevalent site for colorism to thrive. The family was depicted to have the ability to empower or disempower participants. It is important to note that the study stresses that maternal figures play a significant role in transmitting colorist ideals. So that leads me to the 4 themes that I picked up when doing my interpretive phenomenological analysis. So IPA is a type of data analysis that you use when conducting semi-structured interviews. It's one of the types. I could have used discourse analysis, but I chose to use IPA because IPA essentially is the interpretation of the data set. You go in without an opinion, you go in without a conclusion, you draw your conclusion from what the data tells you. From the interviews I conducted, there was these 4 reoccurring themes that really shed light and backed up previous research on colorism. So the 4 themes that I will be discussing is the role of the family, gender and colorism, the role of the media, and celebrities and colorism. So yeah, those are the 4 themes I will be discussing. Let's get into the role of the family. Camera, everybody in the scene. So yes, the role of the family. So previous research has shown messages one receives about their skin shapes one's perception of self. Studies with young children have shown racial awareness being displayed in children as young as 3 years old. Moreover, young people can discern the negative and positive associations that are assigned to black and white racial groups. Now, as the family is the primary agent of socialization, the primary meaning that it is your first contact. You are born into a family, they're your first teachers of good and bad, right and wrong. They help form your perception of society, of yourself and of others, right? So knowing that the family is the primary agent of socialization, it is important to decipher the type of messages children receive from their family about their skin color. Studies that show dark-skinned individuals with a preference for darker skin attributed their perception to be significantly related to how darker skin was idealized by their family and opposite gender. Such findings show the weight of importance family ideals have on a person's concept of self, regardless of comparing skin colors to their peers. Now again, previous research also states that one's position within the family, so whether being the light or dark child, depending on whether they are treated and perceived favorably or unfavorably, can have positive or negative significance on a person's perception of their skin color. This is evidence for the idea of normality, and a sense of connectedness to the black community is essential for nurturing positive self-evaluation. The family is seen as a social institution that acts as an agent of socialization. The family is the primary point of contact that aids in shaping one's identity, life experiences, and perspective. The process of socialization undertaken by the family also comprises of racial socialization, and concerning black parents includes experiences and resources they feel their children need to succeed. Now, as the legacy of slavery is an essential part of black identity, knowledge that conveys positive self-awareness and ethnic pride alongside tends to deal with issues relating to inequality one might face due to forms of racism is passed on during the process of civilization. Accounts of colorist ideologies in black families is prevalent in black novels, fictional and autobiographical accounts. Wilder and Kane 2010 conducted a study on African American women between the ages of 18 and 40 regarding the influences families have on the acceptance of colorist ideology. So the findings concluded that maternal figures such as mothers, grandmothers, and even aunts were the primary propagators of skin tone bias. The participants' interviews revealed these women learned to associate lightness with positivity and blackness with negativity. Consequently associating ideal beauty with lighter skin. The findings are significant in demonstrating the importance of the family, particularly in maternal figures' ability to socialize African Americans to skin color preferences, and the role they play essentially in the continuation of passing down skin color biases from generation to generation. Now, really important, because this theme cropped up with every single participant that I interviewed. Not that I interviewed that many, but they all spoke about their family, in particular their mothers. I don't think anybody stated their grandmother, but their mother and their aunts. Very important in empowering or disempowering their perception of self. So yeah, let's not sleep on this one, but we'll get into that when we get into the results section of the story. You know what? And let's talk about gender and colorism.